Hello, my name is Lewis Lé Val and welcome to Iris. Iris is a beautiful reading system that you can carry with you in your wallet at all times. And it will allow you to give your spectators very detailed and very personal readings. And it doesn't use any stock lines either, so every time you do this, you'll be generating a brand new reading right there and then. Not only that, but you can also reveal your spectator's star sign without the use of any anagrams. The best part is, everything you'll ever need is hidden in plain sight right there on the cards. The cards themselves are also completely examinable, so there is no risk of your spectators ever finding anything you don't want them to find. So with that being said, let's jump right in to Iris. All right, so thank you for joining me. I will ask before we move into this, have you ever had a psychic reading before or anything like that?
Never.
Never?
No.
Okay, so this might be interesting for you. So you've heard of palm reading, the belief that the lines on your hand can tell you all kinds of things about your life.
Yeah.
One thing that a lot of people don't know is you can actually do the same with your eyes, in particular your iris. It's believed that the marks and lines inside your eye can tell you so much more about yourself than any lines on your palm ever could. And you've heard the saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and with your permission, I'd like to look into yours. Perfect. All right, so before we continue, I just want to talk to you about this. In the same way the moon controls the tides of the ocean, it's believed that the season you're born in can tell you all kinds of things about all the characteristics of your personality. So what I've got here is a list of all 4 seasons. If we look at autumn, for example, my birthday falls between these dates. That's how I know I'm definitely born in autumn. And this little mini reading here is actually pretty accurate for me. Yeah. So I'd like you to take this, have a look, find the season you were born in, and check the dates as well, just to be certain, because you'd be surprised at how many people think they're born in summer when it's actually spring, and then they're confused when stuff like this doesn't work for them. Not bad?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. We might actually come back to this in a little while, so I'll place this off to the side. Another thing before we begin is when people go for a psychic reading, they usually have some aspect of their life that they want to focus on for the reading, and by doing that, it helps them get more information out of the reading and hopefully something useful that they can take into their own life. So what I've got here is a list of different areas of our life. These are things that people often focus on when they have a psychic reading. And I'd like you to have a little look through them and just think of one that kind of calls out to you.
Yeah.
You got one?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, in the same way the pupils of our eyes dilate when we're angry or when we're excited, I'm going to take you through a very quick process with this now. And that will kind of illuminate various aspects of your iris, various lines and markings, which I'm going to take a look at, and that's going to help me get the most out of this for you. Because our eyes change depending on our emotional state. So take a look at this again. You'll notice these are split into 4 categories. Ignore the names of them, that's just to help me. But first take a look at the words listed under internal. And if you see your word there, I want you to look me right in the eye. If it's not there, just say no. Okay. All right then, okay. And now take a look at external. And if you see it there, again, look me right in the eye. If it's not there, just say no. Okay, perfect. And do the same for physical. Once again, if it's there, look me right in the eye. If it's not there, just say no. Okay, and the final one in mental. And again, if it's there, look me in the eye. If it's not there, just say no. Interesting. Okay. All right, I'm going to place this off to the side for a moment. Okay, so a couple of things I noticed first. Straight away, I get a sense that you're a creative person, but I don't think you're creative in the traditional sense. I think you like to think a little bit more outside the box than people around you tend to do. But not only that, because you've spent a lot of your life being creative, this kind of shows up in your daily life now when you're making decisions, solving problems, and anything that may come your way. You'll probably find that you're also good at giving advice to other people, but at the same time, when it comes to giving yourself advice, that's when you struggle. Is that true? Okay. I also feel that you used to be the kind of person that'd be a little bit more reserved, a little bit quieter, and kind of almost like you'd be inside your own shell. But I think lately there's been some changes in your life that's kind of brought you out of your shell just a little bit, just enough to show the world who you are and what you're made of. And I think you're now finding ways that you can begin to share your skills with the world and the people around you in ways that you maybe didn't have the confidence to do before. Just without telling me what your star sign is, you're not a Gemini, are you? No? Okay, think about your star sign for a moment then before we get back to this. And just think of the name of your star sign and think of the last letter of your star sign. This is an S, is that right? Okay, and just think of the first letter. Okay, so at first I thought I saw an A, but it's not, is it? No, it's a T. You're a Taurus, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's continue with what we were focusing on. I think there are certain people around you in your life that have always told you kind of how you should live your own life, and they've kind of tried to apply their own rules to you. You shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that, you need to focus more on this. Almost like they're trying to live through you and not really control your life, but kind of decide the direction you should take your life in. And even though you have respect for these people around you, I also think that you've gotten to a point in your life now where you kind of want to explore the world. I think you see yourself traveling in the future, but I think you kind of want to go alone, don't you? Is that right? Okay, excellent. And there's one final thing, and this is becoming much more clearer to me now. I think you've broken away from one particular set of beliefs that you were raised with, and now your mind is kind of open to what's more around you. You've been reading a lot more, you've been definitely watching a lot more YouTube videos, but not for entertainment, but for almost like to learn something from it. People speaking and you're taking their advice on board. Okay, so be honest with me, are you thinking of spirituality? Yeah. Is that what you were thinking of, spirituality? Yeah. All right, excellent. So from this point onwards, my advice to you is, of course, listen to those around you, because when people are trying to determine the direction you should take your life in, all as that does is kind of maybe reveal their own insecurities and the things that they wish they could do in their life. So of course, keep them happy and speak to them and acknowledge them and take their advice on board. But don't forget, the only person that can live your life is you. And they say that the best way to predict the future is to create it for yourself. And I think with the current mindset you've got, oh, and there's one more thing. I feel like there's a problem in your life right now, and the more you try and find a solution to it, it somehow doesn't seem to end. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But just know that with time and with effort, that's when you will start to find solutions to the problems that come your way. You've already got the mind for it. You've definitely got the heart for it. You've just got to stay strong, and I definitely think you can do that.
Thank you. Thank
All right,
you so much.
no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're good. How was that for you?
Wow, like everything you said was right. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Perfect.
Wow. I'm shocked. I'm so shocked.
And another good thing about being a Taurus is you probably, and people joke with you telling you how stubborn you are, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my days.
That's a positive trait though, it's a good thing. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
All right, excellent, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
No problem,
oh
thank you.
Gosh.
So by now I'm sure you've opened up the packaging to find the 2 iris cards inside, and if you've had a good look at them, you'll see that there's nothing on there that would give away any of your methods, which means they are completely examinable. Your spectators aren't going to find a thing. Yet all of the information you'll ever need is right there on the card. So if you do forget something mid-performance, you can just look at these cards to remind yourself. Before we talk about the presentation or the reading or how you use these in a performance, I want to talk to you about the cards one at a time. I want to talk to you about the information that's on there and why it's there and the methods behind the cards themselves. So I'm going to begin by talking to you about the card that has the seasons on it. So I've included the dates for each season for a very specific reason, which I'll explain later on. If you happen to be in a part of the world where your seasons have different dates, don't worry, I'll cover that as well. So you can still use these cards without worrying about the seasons in your part of the year, in your part of the world being different dates. So essentially, when your spectator is looking at one of these seasons, the opposite season to it is right there on the back. So for example, right here, I'm looking at winter. So if my spectator was looking at winter and I'm sat where you are, you can see summer here. And of course, the opposite season to summer is winter. That's how you know what your spectator is looking at. So one more time, if you see summer up here, it means your spectator is looking at winter. If you see winter here, of course, it means they're looking at summer. And of course, the opposite of spring is autumn. So if you see spring here, that's how you know they're looking at autumn. And of course, if you see autumn there, you know they're looking at spring. So when you know the season that your spectator is born in, that narrows the possibility of their star sign from being 1 in 12 to 1 in 3. The information on the cards themselves, so the mini reading for each season, I've written them specifically to be very complimentary, quite flattering, which means you can hand this to anybody and they will read it, and of course they will agree that it kind of describes them, because who wouldn't want to sound like the positive things it has to say about them? And that's why I've done this. So you can hand that to anybody, they find their season, and when you say, would you agree with that, or does that sound like you? They're most likely to say yes, because I've designed it that way. It makes them sound good and look good in front of anybody that might be watching. So, as soon as I know my spectator's season, as soon as I know the season they're born in, I know which one of 3 star signs they are. I'll explain how I know that in a moment, but for now, that's all you need to know about this card. The other card has a list of the star signs on them. The reason for this is, originally, I printed a card just like this for myself, because when I was performing, if somebody didn't know their star sign, I would take this out and hand it to them, and they could discover their star sign there and then. Now, as I said a moment ago, there are only 3 signs in each season. So what that means is, as soon as you know what season your spectator is born in, you can bring your eyes directly to this card, which can stay in full view the whole time, and you will know exactly which 3 signs belong to the season your spectator was born in. For example, if my spectator is born in spring, we begin with spring, so these top 3 signs here are the 3 signs for spring: Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. If I see that my spectator is born in the summer, I know I can skip the spring signs and go straight to summer, which will be the next 3, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. If they're born in autumn, instead of bringing my eyes right down the list, I just jumped straight to this section here, because I've missed Aries, Taurus, Gemini, I've missed Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, which would be spring and summer, and of course the autumn signs are now here: Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And finally, if my spectator is born in winter, I know they're Capricorn, Aquarius, or Pisces. So the quickest way to bring your eyes to the correct section is very easy. If they're born in spring, I just look at the top 3, because we always start with spring. If they're born in winter, I know that's the last season, so I just look at the last 3 signs. If they're born in autumn, I know to skip these bottom 3 and just jump straight to these: Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Libra. And of course, if they're born in summer, I don't need my eyes to dart around the card. I can just start from the top, skip the first 3, and I know it's Cancer, Leo, or Virgo. So now you know exactly which 3 signs belong to the season your spectator is born in. This takes a sign from 1 in 12 to 1 in 3. How you get their exact sign I will talk about later on, because that's built into the presentation of the routine. But for now, that is how you know which season your spectator is born in and which 3 signs belong to that season. So on the other side of the star sign card, you'll find these 4 categories: internal, external, physical, and mental. The names of the categories themselves don't actually mean anything. You just need to remember that there are 4 categories. All of the words are on here, which we'll explain in just a moment. You need to know what those words are. They are travel, health, education, sex, career, ambition, money, creativity, attraction, transition, strength, and spirituality. You'll need to remember those. But I've got the easiest method in the world to lock those in mind. I've written down a list of the words here, in the correct order, and each one has a number. You'll notice that the first or most of this, so right up to here, from 1 to 7, this is a traditional mnemonic used in mentalism, specifically for readings, known as the scam. That's because if you take the first letter of each word, T-H-E spells the, and then you've got S-C-A-M, the scam. The extra words I've added turns the mnemonic into this, the Scam Cats. I like to think of it as a jazz band. So you've got travel, health, education, sex, career, ambition, and money. Most of you will probably know this already, but if you don't, it's the easiest thing in the world to remember. If you can remember the scam, you can remember the words travel, health, education, sex, career, ambition, and money. These are the new ones I've added, just because I didn't want only 7 words on the other side of the card, I wanted more. Now, if you struggle to remember these, creativity, attraction, transition, strength, and spirituality, I have very conveniently put them in order in the last section here on the back of the card, CATS, creativity, attraction, transition, strength, and spirituality. So if you are mid-performance and you've forgotten what these last words are, you can just look right here at the card and you'll find everything you need. Creativity, attraction, transition, strength, and spirituality. It will only take you 5 minutes or less to remember what these words are. As long as you can remember the scam cats, you know what the words are. And each one has a numerical value. Travel is 1, and these are just in the same order as the mnemonic, the scam cats. Travel is 1, health is 2, education is 3, sex is 4, and so on. So now I'd like to bring your attention to the back of this card here. You'll see that there are 4 sections. The titles of the sections don't mean anything, but each section itself has a numerical value. Now you don't need to worry, there are no complicated maths involved. In fact, my maths are so bad that I am the world's greatest example of, if I can do this, anybody can. The first section up here has a numerical value of 1. The next section has a numerical value of 2. The section after that has a numerical value of 4. And the final section has a value of 8. So the number just doubles each time, 1, 2, 4, and 8. So think about this. You've asked your spectator to think of any one of these words. You're then, in simple terms, asking them which of the sections their word appears in. What this will allow you to do is keep a running total in your mind of the values of the sections. So what I mean by that is, if your spectator is thinking of education, it appears here. So right now, at the moment, my value is 1. They move on to the next section. It also appears here. And don't forget, this section has a value of 2, so I need to add it to this. It's very simple. So it was here, I have a value of 1. It's here, which I now add to my previous value, so now I'm up to 3. It doesn't appear here, and it doesn't appear here, which means my running value, my running total is 3. And the third word on the list is education, travel, health, education. And that's how I figure out which word my spectator is thinking of. So one more time, just to make this absolutely clear, this has a value of 1, this has a value of 2, this has a value of 4, this has a value of 8. I'm asking my spectator which of the sections their word appears in, and I'm keeping a running total in my mind. So let's give one more example. Let's say they're thinking of health. It doesn't appear here, so I don't need to do anything. It appears here, so now I'm up to 2. It doesn't appear in this section, and it doesn't appear in this section. So my total value is 2, and the second word in our list is health, and that's how I know what they're thinking of. But now I'd like to share with you a couple of tips to make this process even easier. A lot of this routine involves just looking into your spectator's eyes. So you don't need to do lots of mental gymnastics to figure all of this out. Just keep track of that number, your running value. Because then there'll be a moment when you're just staring into your spectator's eyes. They believe that you're looking at the marks in their eyes to give them a reading, when really all you need to do at this point is figure out in your own time the word that they're thinking of using the number that you ended up with from the card. So for example, let's say the number was 3. I could just say out loud, okay, you're thinking of one of these words. It could be travel, health, education, and I'm literally listing the words out loud and counting on my fingers. So my value was 3. I'm going, you're thinking of either travel, health, education, and I've just told myself what the word is, and I'll continue with a few more just so it doesn't seem obvious. For example, okay, you're thinking of either travel, health, education, sex, career, ambition. I mean, there's plenty of words on there. And at this point, I've told myself what the third word was. I know they're thinking of education. Another way of doing this, and I do this in every performance, is I use my 4 fingers. I treat these 4 fingers as though they're the 4 sections on the back of the card. The first section that has a value of 1, the next that has a value of 2, this one has a value of 4, this one has a value of 8. Because I don't trust myself to add up these numbers quick enough, I simply do this. If it's in the first section, if the word they're thinking of appears in the first section, I simply take my first finger and touch it to the table or my leg. That's how I remind myself that in the first section, their word was definitely there. If their word appeared in the next section, I just touch my finger to the table or to my leg. If it didn't, I don't touch the finger at all, I leave it where it is. If it was in the third section, I put that finger down. If it was in the fourth, I put that one down. So all I'm doing is using my fingers as markers for each of the sections. One more time. If it appears in the first section, I touch my first finger to my leg. If it appears in the next, I touch my finger to the leg there. So once I've got this in place, when I'm looking my spectator in the eye, I can use these as my values. These were the sections they said yes to. So if I found myself in this position, I go 1, 2, I add those together and I get 3. Now I know they're thinking of education because it's the third word in the list. I know this seems a little bit complicated at first, but bear with me, have a little practice and you'll see just how easy this actually is. Now I'd like to do a brief recap of everything you've learned so far. Firstly, I hand the season card to my spectator and ask them to find the season they're born in. Now I can see here on the back at the top it says summer, which tells me my spectator is looking at winter. Now I know they're born in winter. The zodiac card is in my hand or on the table, so I can bring my eyes to the winter section, which is the last because it goes spring, summer, autumn, winter. And I know they can only now be one of these last 3 signs, Capricorn, Aquarius, or Pisces. I don't even need to remember those at this point. All I need to remember is winter, because then later on when it's time to reveal the star sign, I can bring my eyes back to this card and I know they're Capricorn, Aquarius, or Pisces. Once this is done, I take the season card away from them and I introduce them to this card here. I then say to them, there's a list of words, and I'm going to cut out all of the presentation and we'll just keep this simple. I want you to ignore the titles of each section. That's just for me. But Jack, I'd like you to think of any one of these words on the card. Have you got one in mind?
Yes.
Excellent. And we'll keep this very simple. So Jack, does the word you're thinking of appear in the first section?
No.
Okay. Does it appear in the next section?
Yes.
Does it appear in the section after that?
Yes.
And does it appear in the section after that?
No.
Okay. Now if you take a look at what I've done with my hand, I put my fingers down to remind myself which of the sections he said yes to. He said no on the first, he said yes on this one, yes on this one, he said no on this one. Now because of the values of each section, I can take all the time I need to just add this up. It's very simple. This has a value of 2, this has a value of 4. I add these together and I get 6. So now I know the grand total is 6. So in my head, all I need to do is travel, health, education, sex, career, ambition. The 6th word is ambition. Jack, be honest, were you thinking of ambition?
Yes.
Perfect. And that is the simplest way of finding out the word your spectator is thinking of. So now you've seen a very basic performance of the routine itself. Now I want to talk to you about the presentation and how you can kind of put all of this together. I begin by saying to my spectator, I'm sure you're familiar with palm readings, the belief that the lines on your hand can tell you all kinds of things about your life. Well, one thing that not many people know is that you can also do this with your eyes, in particular your iris. It's believed that the lines and marks in your iris can tell you so much more than a palm reading can. And I like to throw in this line. I say, you've heard the saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and with your permission, I'd like to look into yours. And it gets a little bit uncomfortable at that point, but that's okay. That's what this is about. You don't want your spectator to be in their comfort zone while you do this. All right, so you've got their permission to carry on with this. I say, okay, in the same way the moon controls the tides of the sea, it's believed that the season you're born in can determine the characteristics of your personality. So what I have here is a list of all 4 seasons, and underneath an explanation of what that season means and what it could say about you. And then I give this example. Because I am born in autumn, I say, look, if we take a look at autumn, my birthday falls between these dates. That's how I know I'm definitely born in autumn, and this description right here is quite accurate for me. So I would like you to take this and find the season you're born in. Now, the reason why I point out the dates and say my birthday falls between these is because you'd be surprised at just how many people genuinely don't actually know what season they're born in. And if they think they're born in summer when really it's spring, this isn't going to work. So once I've handed them the card, I say, find the season you're born in and please check the dates. Now, I never used to say this, but now I do. I say, you'll be surprised at how many people don't know the season they're born in. Some people think they're born in summer when it's actually spring, and then they're confused why things like this don't work for them. That's my way of telling them that if you don't get the season right, this isn't going to work for you. Because, let's be honest, not everybody is as clever as you'd like them to be. And you won't know how good they are at following simple instructions until it's too late. So no matter how smart your spectator is, just talk them through all of these steps to make sure they absolutely do check the dates to get the correct season. So I've done that. My spectator is looking at this, so I see autumn on the back here. I know they're looking at spring. As soon as I know it's spring, I look straight down at the other card in my hand, and I look at the spring signs, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, and I save that in my mind for later on. I say, okay. I ask them what they think of what it says about them, whether they agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. Most people agree because I've written these in a way that they're quite flattering. You could read any one of these and who wouldn't want to sound like those? So it's just a simple way of having them agree, yes, this sounds like me, because it makes them feel good about themselves, and it makes them look good in front of anybody who's watching. I take this away from them and I say, okay, we may refer back to this later on. Now, of course, I don't intend to, I just need to transition from that card to the next. I then bring this one up and I say, now, in the same way your pupils might dilate when you're angry or excited, the marks in your iris will change depending on your emotional state. Now, if somebody went to go and have a psychic reading, they usually have an area of their life, an aspect of their life they want to focus on for the reading so they can get the most out of it. Here I have a list of different areas of our life, and I'd like you to take a look at that and pick out one that stands out to you the most. Think about what's happening in your life right now and what's important to you, and find a word that closely resembles that. I want you to ignore these words, internal, external, physical, mental. That's just for me. But take a look at the rest and just think of one of those. Pick the one that stands out to you most and just give me a clear yes when you've got one. And I just sit back, relax. I'll probably remind myself of the season just so I can come back to it later on. They were looking at spring. They give me a clear yes. Now I know they're thinking of a word. I say, okay. As I said a moment ago, the marks in your eyes will change depending on your emotional state. So I want you to look at this first section here under internal, and if your word appears in this section, I want you to look me right in the eye. If it doesn't appear there, just give me a clear no. So at this point, one of two things would happen. They will either look right at me, which indicates yes, it is in that section, or they'll just say no, and that tells me it's not in the section. I say, fine, let's move on to the next one. Does it appear in the next section? If it does, look me straight in the eye. If it doesn't, just give me a clear no. So this is what I'm using to figure out which sections my spectator's word appears in. I do this with all 4 sections, which will then leave me with a total value in mind. At this point, I can take the card away from them, look them right in the eyes as though I'm still reading the markings in their eyes, and I'm just figuring out what I need, and I've got all the time in the world to do this. They understand that my process is to look into their eyes and tell them what I see. So I just look them in the eyes, and in my mind I'm going, okay, that was a value of 5, travel, health, education, sex, career. Oh, career, they're thinking of career. And then once I know the word they're thinking of, that gives me plenty of content for the reading. Now we will get onto how you do readings in the next section. But at this point, I'd like to talk to you about the star sign reveal. All right, at this point, you know what season your spectator is born in. So at any point, you can glance down and remind yourself of what 3 signs belong to that season. You also know the word they're thinking of too, and you're going to use that word to build a reading for your spectator. Now, we will talk about readings later on, but first let's focus on the star sign. I've been giving a reading, and then at some point I stop myself and I just throw out one of the 3 signs. Now, what you will notice is, in each of the 3 signs that belong to each season, you'll find 2 of them that have something in common. So in this example, we've been using spring, and the spring signs are Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Of those 3 signs, Aries and Taurus have something in common. They both end with the letter S. Gemini is the one that doesn't have an S. So Gemini is the one that I'm going to throw out. I'm halfway through the reading, I say, without telling me what your star sign is, you're not a Gemini, are you? And if they say yes, brilliant, I've just pulled their star sign out of nowhere. If they say no, I simply say, yeah, I didn't think so, just focus on your star sign for me. Now what I've done here is, it's all been reading. I've thrown out a star sign. It wasn't theirs. So now I behave as though I'm shifting the focus of what we're doing onto star signs for a brief moment before we get back to the reading. Reading. You're not a Gemini, are you? If they say yes, great. If they say no, I didn't think so. Just focus on your star sign for me and think of the name of your star sign. Now, because Aries and Taurus both end with an S, I can say to them, just think of the last letter of your star sign. And they behave as though I can somehow see it in their eyes, and I say, this is an S, correct? And of course, I know they're going to say yes, because the only 2 signs left do end with an S. I then say, okay, perfect. Now just think of the first letter of your star sign. And I'll probably say something along the lines of, okay, I'm starting to see what looks like an A. And if they react to that, I know it's an A, which tells me they're Aries. If they don't react, I just continue talking and say, but now it kind of looks more like a T, you're a Taurus, right? And of course, that's how I get the reveal. So I revealed the last letter of the sign. I say, focus on the first one. I'm starting to see what looks like an A. If I get a reaction there, you're an Aries, correct? Brilliant. If there's no reaction to that, I say, but now it's starting to look more like a T. Be honest with me, are you a Taurus? And of course, at that point, you'll get the yes. I want to explain how this works for each of the seasons. So that was spring, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Let's focus on summer, Leo, Cancer, and Virgo. Of those 3 signs, the 2 that have something in common are Leo and Virgo. They both end with an O. So you can do the same thing again. Cancer's the odd one out, halfway through the reading, without telling me what your star sign is. You're not a Cancer, are you? If they say yes, great. If they say no, I didn't think so. Just focus on your star sign for me. Think of the name of your star sign and think of that last letter. This is an O, correct? And of course it is. And I just do the same thing again. Now think of that first letter. I'm starting to see what looks like an L. If there's a reaction there, they're Leo. If there's no reaction, I say, but now it looks more like a V. Be honest with me, is your star sign Virgo? And of course, if they weren't Leo, they're going to be Virgo. Let's take a look at autumn. The autumn signs are Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Again, of those 3 signs, the only 2 that have something in common are Scorpio and Sagittarius, because they both begin with an S. Luckily, Sagittarius also ends with an S. So at this point, reading. Without telling me what your star sign is, you're not a Libra, are you? If yes, great. If no, just think of your star sign for me. Now, because Sagittarius also ends with an S, you can do this. Just think of that last letter for me. This is an S, correct? And if they say yes, straight away I know they're Sagittarius because Scorpio doesn't end with an S. But if they say no, so I've said think of that last letter, this is an S. If they say no, I know they're Scorpio. So at this point, I can just say, oh, wait, hold on a moment. That's the first letter. You're a Scorpio. And that's how I get my hit for autumn. And finally, winter, Capricorn, Pisces, and Aquarius. Of those three signs, Pisces and Aquarius end with S. And I'm sure at this point I don't need to repeat it. You can just do the same process to figure out which of the three signs your spectator is. And that is how you reveal your spectator's star sign. Before we move on from the star signs, there's one more thing I want to talk to you about. You will always have the crib with you and it can stay in plain view the whole time. So once you know your spectator's season, it's very easy at any point to look down at the list and figure out what the three signs are for that season. But I want to share with you a technique that I use to remember which signs belong to each season. And by using that, I never have to look at the star sign card at all. As soon as I know my spectator's season, because of the trick I'm about to teach you, I'll know exactly which three signs belong to that season. Now, this will only take you, and I'm not exaggerating here, it will only take you 5 minutes to learn. Just sit down, give this a go. It won't take any longer than 5 minutes, and after that, you'll just have this locked in mind. And then maybe just test yourself once a day for a couple of days. And once you've gotten used to it, this thing will be with you forever. So, in my imagination, I visualize 4 windows. One is in front of me, the other one's to my side, one's behind me, and one is here. And they're all in order: spring, summer, autumn, winter. And I've created an image for each one. Now, these images are a little bit strange, and I'll explain why they're strange in a short while, but this is what I visualize. The spring window in front of me. I see a spring-type scene. There's a meadow, and there's a tree with flowers blossoming. In the scene, there is a ram, and there is a bull, and there are 2 twins. One of them is looking after the bull, the other one is looking after the ram. It's a very, very basic, simple image to lock in mind. So when I look through this imaginary spring window, I'm seeing the spring scene, and I'm seeing Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Of course, Aries is the ram, Taurus is the bull, and Gemini is the twins. So it's like a painting that I have in my mind that just stays fixed in one place. So if I see spring, I look through my spring window in my imagination, and that's what I see. And all 3 signs are right there in front of me. For summer, so for this imaginary window I have here, I see a beach. There's the sand, the sea, and the sun blazing in the sky. And the sun is huge. And it also resembles a lion's face. The beams of light coming from the sun are the lion's mane. So right there, that golden sun is also a lion's face. Coming out of the water is a crab, and sunbathing on the beach is a beautiful woman. So I look out of this summer window and I see Leo up in the sky with that sun, Cancer, which is the crab coming out of the water, and Virgo, the virgin, the beautiful woman laying on the beach. So if my spectator is born in summer, in my imagination I just look out of this window and I've got Virgo, Leo, and Cancer. In the autumn window behind me, this is a bit of a special one, but I'm also born in autumn as well, so I think this has become my favorite image. In my autumn window, I see a huge tree, which kind of looks like the Libra scales. So you've got the tree, the branches, and the parts of the scales coming down, and it's just raining orange leaves, just to give it that real autumn vibe. So I've got the scales for Libra, which is the tree. In one side of the scales, I've got the sort of centaur, whatever it's called, the Sagittarius, the half man, half horse with his bow and arrow. He's in one side of the scales, and in the other scale is a scorpion. And in my mind, it kind of plays out like they're sitting in the scales, and he's trying to shoot the scorpion with his bow and arrow. So if my spectator is born in autumn, I look in that imaginary window behind me, and I'm seeing Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Then, over in my imaginary winter window, I see kind of snow and a frozen lake. And if you've ever seen any TV shows or movies that have Vikings in them, in my mind, the scene kind of looks like that. I see the lake, I see the snow, and I see a man carrying a barrel of water. Aquarius is the water bearer, so he's Aquarius, he's the water bearer, he's carrying the water. Inside the barrel of water, there's fish, and he walks past a goat. That's it, it's just a very simple scene. It's a man walking away from what could be boats where there's been fishing or whatever. It's just kind of how it is in my mind. He's carrying water, there's fish in the barrel, he walks past a goat. The goat, of course, is Capricorn, the fish in the barrel is Pisces, and the man carrying the water is the water bearer, Aquarius. So if you just take 5 minutes to lock these images, or create your own images, that's fine, but if you lock these images in mind, the more unusual they are, the easier they are to remember, because they're so strange, they just stick in your mind a little bit easier. If you've got those in mind, you'll never need to look at the zodiac side of the card again. As soon as you know what season your spectator is born in, look out of your imaginary window. So I've got spring, summer, autumn, winter. I look out of that window, and there's my 3 signs, always sat there ready to go. So I don't even need to repeat the signs in my mind. I just remember the season they're born in. So if they're born in summer, I just keep that in mind throughout the routine. Summer, 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 summer. And then when it's time for me to reveal the star sign, I look out my summer window, Cancer, Virgo, Leo. And there are the star signs ready to go. And that is, for me, the best way of remembering which signs belong to each season. All right then, let's talk about readings. Now, I would highly recommend not revealing your spectator's star sign straight away. You need some time misdirection. They've been handling the cards, they've gone through this physical process with you. At this point, if you just reveal the star sign, the first conclusion your spectator could jump to is, oh, maybe it's something to do with the cards. And you want to get rid of that idea. The star sign's not going anywhere. You're not going to forget the season they're born in. Save that for later on. Save that for halfway through the reading. So instead of beginning with the star sign, save that until you're in the flow of things. When you've already been talking for a few moments. When you've been looking into your spectator's eyes. Because the more you talk through the reading, the more specific you will seem to get. So it wouldn't make sense to get the star sign straight away, but it might make sense to get it later on. And then your reading gets a little bit more specific, and then you finally reveal the aspect of their life they're thinking of, or the word they're thinking of. So when it comes to doing readings, you're not really there to tell a person things about themselves. They already know about themselves. You're more there to give them a fresh perspective on their current situation. This is not really about predicting the future. It's more about revealing hidden aspects of the present. You're talking about areas of your spectator's life and kind of bringing them into your spectator's awareness. And it's nice to leave them with some harmless advice. And by that, I mean, don't tell them to do anything. Just kind of encourage them and empower them through the use of your reading. I'll explain more on that later on. All you need to do is take the word your spectator is thinking of and then just elaborate on that. Speak about it metaphorically. A little game you can play with yourself is to speak as though you're trying to get your spectator to guess the word. So if they're thinking of strength, in my mind, I pretend I'm thinking of strength and I want my spectator to guess what that word is, but I'm not allowed to say the word strength. How would I do that? I would begin to talk in ways that could indicate that I am talking about strength. And I think it's important as mentalists to just trust your own natural intuitive ability when it comes to doing readings. We talk about psychic impressions all the time. Now, psychic just means of the mind. And if you're receiving impressions and speaking them, then what you're doing is real. This is a real reading. A psychic reading doesn't have to be a superpower. You're not there to tell people things about them that you couldn't possibly know. You're there to simply share the impressions you receive about them. And it's interesting because as mentalists, we talk about intuition, psychic ability, the power of the mind, and this, that, and the other. But we ignore our genuine human abilities to actually do this in the first place. Now, we make intuitive decisions every day of our lives, from smaller decisions to potentially life-changing ones. We do this every day. But for some reason, when we get into a mentalism performance, when we need it most, we ignore that. Some people don't even believe that we have the ability to do that, and we just stay within the realm of the intellect. How can I intellectually piece this together and make it seem as though I'm saying something I'm not? Well, the truth is, if you just pay attention to what you feel, because you've got your reveals, you know what the word is, and you will get those hits, but now you've got all the time to practice this for real, genuinely. When you meet a new person, pay attention to what your mind shows you. How do you feel about this person, and what do you honestly think is going on in their life? As I say, this doesn't have to be a superpower, but just try it for real. If you were to go to a bookshop and buy any book on how to do intuitive readings, all it will simply say is, have some awareness of self. A reading is just simply being aware of your own mind beyond the intellect. Don't add process or thought or logic or reason to this. Use your imagination, just let it run wild. I've got this concept that I call automatic imagination. This has got nothing to do with the automatic imagination model pieced together by Anthony Jacquin and Kev Sheldrake. It's a different thing. For me, automatic imagination is this. I can control my imagination and think about whatever I want, but that's me controlling it. Automatic imagination is simply just observing what's already in your imagination and using those as your intuitive impressions. This won't play like a video, like a psychic dream in your mind. You've got to be willing to do this yourself. You've got to train yourself to observe your imagination, look at what's there, no matter how strange or silly it is, and then just talk about that. And I'll give you an example right here. I look at Jack, who's holding the camera for me, and the first thing my imagination just happened to show me was an image of Jack floating through space. He didn't have a spacesuit on, he was just floating through space, kind of relaxed. Now, I'm not just going to say that. I'm not just going to say, Jack, I can see you floating through space. It sounds stupid. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage the intellect to take this dreamlike image and then make sense of it. So just to be clear, I'm not using my intellect as a source of inspiration for the reading. I'm using the intellect to make sense of the reading, of my impressions. Separate from the intellect, I just let my imagination go wild. So for example, what I've just seen with Jack, floating through space without a space suit on, I'll say, okay, Jack, I feel like recently you've found yourself in a situation that's different from what you're used to. Now, although this new situation in your life, whatever that may be, is kind of alien or strange to you, I think you feel quite comfortable and confident in this situation you found yourself in. I don't think you're doing much at the moment. I don't think you're taking much physical action, but I do think there's a lot going on in the back of your mind to kind of plan out the next steps in your life and what you plan to do next. I think you're waiting on things to happen around your life, and there's no problem with waiting as long as you keep your thought process flowing, as long as you keep mentally working on whatever it is that you're going to do next, so that when it comes time for you to put your thoughts into action, you'll be fully prepared. Now, there's a reading just off the top of my head based on this ridiculous imaginary vision I had of Jack here holding the camera. I've taken this ridiculous daydream and made sense of it. I talked about him being in a situation that's alien to him. Well, he's in space, but he's not panicking, so he's comfortable in the situation. He's not doing much, he's not taking physical action, so he's probably thinking about a lot of stuff. Now, the thing is, I don't know if this is happening in my spectator's life or not. All I'm doing is speaking my impressions. It's up to my spectator to connect this to their life. Now, this isn't just a case of me throwing out words and hoping they can find meaning. It's simply me sharing. This is how I feel about you. On an intuitive level, this is what I'm getting from your presence. And think about this. If I woke up this morning and I was absolutely, well and truly proven beyond a doubt scientifically that I was psychic, completely psychic, if that was absolutely scientifically proven, I would have just said the same thing to Jack that I said a moment ago. So now, if you think about it, I don't need to scientifically prove that I'm psychic because I'm doing the same stuff. If I was genuinely psychic, or if I was trusting my intuitive abilities, what's the difference? How do you know what's real and what's not? In my opinion, the difference between real and what's not is just having the confidence in yourself to give this a try and see what you can get. Now, there are many performers out there that will say, oh, I don't want to claim that this is real, but if you're doing it for real, why not? You don't have to make extravagant claims, but let your spectators understand that this is real. And I've spoken about this before, but I've got a feeling that a few people that will see this won't have heard me speak about this in the past. If you had an evil twin that knew all of the methods to your mentalism, and they followed you to every performance you do, and then when you leave, your twin stays behind to tell your audience the methods to everything you just did, If you're doing readings and you're genuinely paying attention to your intuition and sharing those, your evil twin will then have to say, yeah, that reading he did, that was real. That came from a place within himself and he shared it with you. So let that be real. If you're uncomfortable letting people believe it's real, and the only reason I can think of is to do that is because I've heard some performers say, I don't want to give people false hope or have them believing in something that I know not to be true. But the truth is, who are you to say what's true and what's not? We genuinely don't know. Now, as long as you're not claiming to contact the dead or anything like that, because it's a whole different area of ethics, if something about your performance can inspire your spectator to go out there and open their mind and look at this incredible universe we're in, then why not? You know, in Western society, there's nothing here that nurtures, there's nothing here that encourages to look outside of everything that we're immediately familiar with. The universe seems so stable when you play your role within it. Now, you can perform within your own comfort zone and within their comfort zone, but what use is that? What good is that? Yes, you'll entertain them, but I wouldn't worry about them going off on their own path to research, is psychic ability possible? Is there more to life than what's immediately in front of me? And the truth is, absolutely there is, always there is. And if you can encourage that, if you can make somebody step outside of what they know and what they're comfortable with to explore the possibilities of their own consciousness or the universe or just how weird everything is, then absolutely you should be doing that. Now, you could say that what you're doing isn't real because you are using deceptive methods. You know, you might be using a peak, you might be using a system like the one we've got here. But I like to think of it as like this. You're blowing up a balloon full of air, and all of the air inside that balloon is real, which is what we're doing here. It's the reading, it's the ceremony of the experience, it's the interaction you're having with your spectator and the experience you're giving them. All of the air inside that balloon is what's real in the performance. Any deceptive methods you have, such as a peak or a system like this, is like a pin. Now, alone that pin is nothing, but if it bursts that balloon, it's the pin itself that brings all of the good stuff, all the stuff you consider real, into your spectator's reality. And I've seen many mentalists look at the methods to what they do and say, I can't claim this is real because I know it's not. But we've got to be able to separate the ingredients and the recipe from the final result. Yes, some of your methods may not be real, but the end result absolutely is. Because if you were psychic, or if you were a mentalist just using methods, the end result is still the same. Whether you were genuinely psychic or whether you're using methods, that end result is still the same. So fortunately, for all of us, you don't need to be really psychic because what you're doing is the same. It's kind of like if you bake a cake, that cake is real. It's 100% cake, but the ingredients you use to make that cake, they're not cake. Where I'm going with this is, you can't look at the ingredients for the cake and say, well, this isn't cake, because the end result that you get is cake. I think I'm losing the plot a little bit, but I'd recommend it. It's worth it. So, yes, your methods aren't real, and you don't have to claim that those are, but the experience you're giving people absolutely is real. And I highly encourage you to just trust your own natural sense of knowing that you already have and bring that into your performances. Because if you have the confidence to just sit down and trust what your intuition shows you, you'll be surprised at some of the things you come out with. And if you watch the performance that I did of Iris, she was thinking of spirituality. And I didn't reveal that. I didn't even really talk about spirituality until the very end. Everything else I'd said up until that point was just me genuinely looking at the young lady in front of me and thinking, okay, how do I feel about this person? What do I feel is going on in her life? What vibes does she give me? What's my imagination showing me? What's my intuition telling me? And that's what I went with. The hardest part about doing readings is not finding content for your reading, but just putting that into words. And of course, that's when you engage the intellect. So look at metaphors. Look at describing words without saying the words themselves. A great thing to do, and I recommend this to everybody, is go to an art gallery. Go to a gallery that's full of modern art. You want to find some art that doesn't make immediate sense. If you look at a painting of a woman, it's very clear that it's a woman and you can't get any meaning out of it. But if you look at some modern art, it might look like something a child made, but force yourself to find some meaning in it. Pretend you're a guide at the gallery. And you've got an imaginary group of people and you're going to explain to them what this person means. Because if you go to an art gallery for one day and spend a couple of hours doing this with all of the strange and unusual art you can find, when you leave that gallery, you will be an expert in giving people readings. Because you'll use that same skills, those same skills you learned in the art gallery in your performances. You'll just be able to look at people, find an abstract image, and then speak that in a way that makes sense. I see and I understand that this is kind of hard to, well, it's hard for me to explain, and it might be hard to understand, but I'm just doing my best to, if anything, to just encourage you to just try it for real. Just give it a go. It doesn't, like I say, it doesn't need to be a superpower, but you already have a natural intuitive sense anyway. Why not use it? And if you're worried about letting people believe it's real, that's not for their benefit, that's for yours, because you won't step out of your comfort zone. Now, if you think, now this is going to sound strange, but I am going somewhere with this. If you think about the planet, the Earth, and think about space, that's really weird. Think about the universe and how big that is. That is so strange. But we go our day-to-day lives without thinking about that sort of stuff. Now, the universe itself is full of incredible mystery. The greatest mysteries possible. The greatest mysteries that the brightest minds today can't even solve. And you're sitting here worried about, oh, is it okay if I let this person think my readings are real? Absolutely it is. Grow up. If you're comparing the mysteries of a reading to the mysteries of the universe, it's so small and so insignificant, you'll be wondering why you haven't been doing this every single day anyway. And the truth is you have. You just haven't been willing to put it into your mentalism performances. But now is the time to do that. Use your intuition, try this for real, and you'll surprise yourself. Now, if you say something that your spectator doesn't agree with, that doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, as long as what you say isn't something ridiculous or offensive or hurtful. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that in that moment, your spectator can't really connect it to their life, and that's fine. Because think about this. If you were genuinely, again, scientifically proven to be psychic, and you spoke your intuitive impressions, those impressions are only as good as your spectator's ability to connect it to their life. So again, genuine psychic given impressions, or you and I given impressions. If your spectator can't connect either of those to their life, then it's irrelevant. So again, it doesn't mean you're wrong if your spectator disagrees with something you say. It simply means they just can't connect it to their life at that point, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because you haven't said to them, every single word I'm about to say is true for you. You haven't said that. You're not making those claims. And if you look at any psychic out there performing today, some of their impressions won't hit either. That's not the point. This isn't just mentalism. This isn't hit after hit after hit. It's like, here's my impressions, and we'll focus on the ones that resonate with you. So start speaking, and if your spectator gets excited about something you've said, that means you've said something good that resonates with them. So elaborate on it more. And if you watch the performance back of me doing Iris here at this table, look at some of the things I say and look at the way she reacts. Then look at how I react to her reactions. I'll say something, she'll react, and then I jump on that and just say a little bit more about it before moving on to something else. And if I say something that wasn't quite sitting well with her or she couldn't connect to her life, I just kept talking and changed the subject to something else within the reading. So once I know what my spectator's word is, I don't want to begin talking about that straight away. So for example, here at this table, my spectator was thinking about spirituality. Now, until you've had plenty of practice, you could just start on that. The reading doesn't have to be long. You can just start talking about spirituality in this person's life, what could be happening in their life revolving spirituality. But I like to say a few other things first, some vague things, because then if the reading starts to dry up and I need to bring their attention back, if I need to wake the moment up again, then there's a perfect time for me to do the star sign. So she's thinking of spirituality. I saved that for the end of the reading. I'm going to say whatever I want at this point. If it's going well, I'm just going to keep going, because this is all intuitive now. This got nothing to do with Iris. This is just me giving somebody a beautiful reading. So as long as it's going well, I'm going to keep going. The moment the reading starts to dry up a little bit, perfect time for me to bring in the star sign. And I say, without telling me what your star sign is, you're not a Gemini, are you? And the reason why I use that line is because sometimes I've said, you're not a Gemini, are you? And sometimes my spectator will go, no, I'm an Aries. And they'll ruin my hit for me. So I just use that line without telling me what your star sign is. You're not a Gemini, are you? And that'll just give you a yes or no rather than them accidentally revealing the star sign for you. So the reading dries up, star sign reveal. Once I've nailed that, once I've got the star sign, I can then jump back into the reading, focusing specifically on the word they're thinking of. In this example, it'd be spirituality, so I'm talking in as many different ways as I can about how spirituality could relate to this person's life. And I just let them take what I've said and apply it to their life. And one final thing that I do is I give them just a little bit of advice, just a few words of encouragement. If you don't already know any, Google inspirational quotes and just make sure you don't copy them word for word, or don't pick the most obvious ones that they've probably already seen on the internet. You're giving them advice, but nothing that's going to become a life-changing decision. You're just simply encouraging them, motivating them, and empowering them. Because the truth is, if anyone ever has a question and they take it to a psychic, really, deep down, they already know the answer themselves. They just want somebody else to confirm it for them. Now, I tend to stay away from things like that unless I'm doing a more in-depth reading, such as tarot. But in this particular instance, and with this reading, just make them feel good about themselves. We've just talked about all these different things in their life. I want to leave them with one final thing to think about, because it's not enough for me to just tell them. They already know everything about themselves. So what use is it for me to sit here and go, you know this about yourself, you know this, you already know this, and you knew that. Well, good. It's useful to do that because it kind of demonstrates that you do have some sort of intuitive ability here. But then when you leave them with a little bit of advice, something nice and something positive to think about when they wake up the next morning, that is more useful than anything else you could possibly do here. And the fact that you've been able to reveal the word they're thinking of as well as their star sign, it just solidifies the moment more and it gives you more credibility. Oh, he must have been intuitive because he knew my star sign. He knew what aspect of my life he was thinking about. Maybe I should listen to him. And again, as long as your advice doesn't have the potential to be harmful or life-changing in any way, you can't go wrong. Just empower them, motivate them, inspire them, and remember why you're doing this in the first place. It's not really to entertain them, let's be honest. It's about giving them a moment. Essentially, you're constructing a dream within reality, and I think that's beautiful. Because every other artist in the world that isn't a mentalist would love to be able to do what we do. The greatest painters in the world would love to be able to create a painting that makes people stand back and their jaws drop to the floor and go, oh my God. Not only is it visually beautiful, but it changed something within me for the better. Every painter in the world would love to be able to do that. And we do that on a daily basis. So just remember how powerful this kind of stuff is, and only use your powers for good. So I know that was a little bit of a lengthy section to get through, and I just can't help it. When I get on a roll, I just don't know when to stop. Now, just off camera a moment ago, I was talking to Dee and I was talking to Jack about readings and how people connect them to their own life. And we realized something that I thought would be important to share with you. So we've put the cameras back on, and I want you to think about this. Whatever you say during your readings, your spectator will then connect them to their own life in whatever way. Even if it's not specifically something you've said, whatever connection they make to it is what they will remember. And it's that they will tell to other people. So if they sit and have a reading with you, and they go and tell their friends and family about their reading, they're not going to repeat what you've said. They're going to tell their friends and family the connections they made. So when I gave Jack that reading about when I saw him floating through space, and I tried to elaborate on that, there's a new situation he's found himself in, something he hasn't focused on for a while. He was talking about a couple of family members that he hadn't been to see for a while. That was the connection he made to that. Now, I said nothing about him going to see his family members. I was just talking about what I saw in my mind. But the connection he made was to his family and how often he's visited certain members of his family. So if he was to then go and tell those friends and family about his reading that he had with me, he's not going to repeat what I've said. He's going to say, oh, in my reading with Lewis, he knew I hadn't been to see you for a while. He knew I'd been thinking about coming, and he's going to repeat all of the connections he made to the reading and not the things that I said. And I think that's an important thing to think about. People won't repeat what you've said. They'll repeat how you made them feel, and they'll repeat the connections they've made to your reading in their life. That's what they'll go and tell people you were able to reveal, not what you actually revealed. All right, I just wanted to get that out of the way. And finally, I'd like to talk to you about a few more ideas that you can use these cards with. Firstly, if you're in a part of the world where your seasons don't align with the dates of the seasons on here, so if you're in Australia, for example, your seasons are going to be at different dates than what's on this card. But that's okay, because if you are in a place where your seasons don't align with these dates, you've got even more reason to use this card. So you can simply say to your spectator, look, of course, you know what season you're born in, but do you know your astrological season? Now, our astrological season isn't even a real thing as far as I'm aware, but it feels like it is. And of course, they're not going to know their astrological season, so you would hand them the card and say, okay, these are the dates for the astrological seasons, find where your birthday falls, and that tells you what your astrological season is. And you can imply that because these are astrological seasons, that's why there's a reading for each one. So you can behave as though, look, the season you're born in, or the season you know of, doesn't really have any meaning. But it's your astrological meaning that can tell you these things about your personality. Would you be interested to find out what yours is? So then, it doesn't matter where in the world you're from, if your seasons don't align with these, that's perfectly fine. Call it an astrological season, and then everything, as far as I'm aware, or as far as I'm concerned, is completely justified. Another thing you can do is feel free to make your own. If the style of these cards don't suit your style, by all means, jump on your computer and make your own. You've got all of the information you need here, so just feel free to copy them in your own style. I designed these cards to look like they came from a New Age shop, or like something you would even get free with a magazine. So in a way, they're my tools of the trade. Because if you worked with pendulums, of course you would own a pendulum. If you worked with tarot, you would own a tarot deck. If you worked with iris readings, which is a real thing, by the way, and there's two versions of it. One is to genuinely read the markings in the eye, and the other is to simply scry, do some scrying by looking into the eyes in the same way you would with a crystal ball. So if that's what you now suddenly specialize in, it only makes sense that you've also got the tools of the trade. And of course, you can even put this into another language if you want to, and it should work pretty much the same. Another thing you can do with this is, instead of using just one card with the 4 sections, why don't you take 4 of your business cards? And on the back of each of your business cards, write down the words for each section. So on one card, you would write down all the words from the first section. On another, all the words from the second. And then on the next one, on a third. And the final section on a fourth. You could also write them in different colors as well. Because as we all know, the color spectrum has an effect on the eyes. And you could even build that into your presentation. As though by having your spectator look at the words in these different colors, it would do something to their eyes that you are able to recognize or pick up on in some way. So if you were doing this with business cards, instead of 4 sections on one card, you've got 4 business cards. On the other side of them, so on the back of the cards, you would just simply mark them. Take a pencil and leave markings on the other side that you will recognize. This is so that you will know the values of them. So for example, section 1 up here has a value of 1. So the business card that contains all of those words would be marked with the 1, so you know that's the value of 1. The same goes for the next business card. It'd be marked so you know it's a value of 2. The next card, it'd be marked so you know it's a value of 4, and the last one, 8. So then, you can hand all 4 of these business cards to your spectator. They're thinking of a word. You say, now, take a look at that first card, and if your word appears on there, I want you to place it face down in the palm of my hand. If it doesn't appear there, just place it off to the side and we'll move on to the next one. And you have your spectator repeat this with all 4 cards. If their word appears, it goes face down in the palm of your hand. And the beauty of this is, when they place the cards down in your hand, you're just looking at the markings on the back so you can get your running total. You can add all of this up as you go along. And the best part is, once you've got the cards in your hand, if you've forgotten what the number is, or if you've lost track, or if you've miscounted, you can just spread these face down in your hands or spread them on the table, and the evidence will always be there. So with the main iris routine, you're keeping track of these as you go. But if you were to do this with business cards, there's no risk of you ever forgetting or losing track, because they've just given you the cards that contain their words, and they're not going anywhere. They'll stay right in your hand, and you can hold on to them for as long as you need to until you know the total value, and you can continue with the routine from there. Another thing I'd like to talk to you about, which simply uses the star signs, is if you own a peak wallet, such as the shadow wallet, you can do this. Let's say you have 2 spectators. You'd hand spectator number 1 the card that contains the zodiac. Give them this card along with a dry white marker and have them circle what their star sign is. You would then take that card face down and place it inside your peak wallet, and don't peek it just yet. You would then take the season card and hand it to another spectator to take a look at. They look at the season they're born in, and when they've done that, you now know what season they're born in, so you know which of the 3 signs they are. You take the card off them, and as you place this back inside your wallet, you've got all the time you need to get your peak through the use of the wallet to figure out what this spectator's star sign is. Now you're in a wonderful situation. I definitely know what their sign is, and I know which of the 3 signs that there is because I know the season. So you can very slowly do what you need to do to reveal this person's star sign using the methods we've already talked about. You can then turn to the next person and say, let's try the same thing again, but we won't say anything out loud, just think about what your star sign is. And then you're able to reveal it from there. Or of course, however way you choose. So thank you for purchasing Iris. This is a very special routine, and I believe it's quite different as well. Try not to see this as entertainment. This is a creative tool that you can use to genuinely improve your intuitive abilities. And you can use it as a way to connect with people as well, in a way that's different from their normal day-to-day interactions. The dynamics of the conversation somehow shift when you begin talking about intimate aspects of a person's life. And it's a beautiful thing that you can share with somebody. Just by keeping these cards in your wallet, you'll be ready at a moment's notice to do something truly beautiful for another person. And in turn, it's truly beautiful for yourself as well. You will gain just as much from performing this as your spectator will from seeing it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you again. I hope to see you all out there performing this. And please, if you meet me in person, come and perform this for me, because I'd love to see what kind of reading you give to me from it. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. My name is Lewis Lé Val, and this was Iris.